Handover is the last mile of every project, and it is where digital truth is either protected or lost. Today, my guest and I reveal the modern standards for asset data, the workflows that ensure operations readiness, and the future of turnover in a digital first industry. Let's get into it. Today, we have a very, very special guest. And I know normally I get on here and I'd say I don't like the guest, but I can't say that this time. I have my friend Sonali here, who I'm not going to tell her resume because it's too long. So I'll let her let us know who is Sonali.
I grew up in India. My dad was a GC back home, and I came here, and he told me to not get into construction. So I got into architecture, and I came here for my master's at Penn State. And I just stayed here. I found my husband and, just loved it and carried on. So when I went and did my doctorate, I changed into construction. I didn't listen to my dad. And, you know that, Kendra, you don't always listen to your dad. Um, and so I got into construction, architectural engineering, loved it. It was still design. So I worked on something called virtual prototyping or virtual review of facilities. And I focused on healthcare facilities, but then I focused also on owners, so nurses, doctors, how would they see their facility? Because, they come from a different domain. How can they understand the built environment? So it was a lot of fun. And ever since that, I got into construction, very consulting specific, did a lot of healthcare consulting, moved to Dallas in 2013, worked on the big Parkland hospital. That time did a lot of hospitals in Abu Dhabi, in Philadelphia. So traveled a lot. And it was all about the transition of owners into their new facility. And then 5 or 6 years ago, I got back into core construction, if you will, and joined Clark Construction as a GC and joined their group called CODA, Construction Data Analytics. And what it was focused on is mitigating owner risk. So we are here in the trenches, getting work done, trying to do whether it's underground coordination, design risk, existing conditions. And then the part that I focused on was facility data management or asset data turnover at the end of the project for owners. So that's really where my passion lies right now. And I do all the good, bad, and ugly of getting the data from design, construction to operations.
We attended a digital twin workshop together in State College, Pennsylvania. It was cold.
Yes.
So I asked her, I said, Sonali, this is where you went to school. And she's like, you really want to know why I got my PhD? And I was like, what? She said, I didn't have nothing else to do, so I got my PhD.
So, yeah, that's exactly right. From a timing perspective, I graduated 2008 and there were no jobs. And I was like, you know what? I will go back and get a doctorate. And like I said, I met my husband then. And I was around so many intelligent academic people. I just got excited. And I didn't think it was in me to do it, but here I am.
People probably think, hey, you have a PhD, it's easy to get a job. They still don't understand how tough that is.
It is. And if I be honest, I think to get into industry, it's actually a drawback a little bit because you are theoretical, you're too much in your ivy tower, you're too idealized. And then when you are on a job site and you're meeting people who have so much work experience, like Robert, you're one of them, it humbles you real quick. All that bookish knowledge, like it counts for nothing. If anything, it can become a crutch or a handicap because now you can be smart, you can be book smart, but when the rubber hits the road, the world is very different in the trenches.
Yeah.
He
It is.
says that quite often too, especially when he goes and speaks to students, interns, PhDs, all of this. He makes sure to make the point education has no place on a work site.
It really
And
doesn't.
it seems to be very true. I used to look at it and be like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
Until I came across that myself, and I was just like, "That's not what that means here." And they were like, "What do you mean?" "Yes, it is." I was like, "Well, if you're in the field, that they don't care." So, yeah, it's definitely a point to be made. I could see how that is a drawback.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is you're working for Coda? What does that mean again?
So I work for CODA. What that means is it stands for Construction Data Analytics, and we work with data. It's like any big GC, they have their VDC departments, and then they do the typical VDC things. So, if the specs, you have the site utilization plan, you have 3D coordination, the typical stuff. And then you will have some people who will try to go above and beyond, who will start to code, who will be in Dynamo writing scripts. So CODA was actually born from those type of people who wanted to do a little bit more, who wanted to push the envelope of the industry and say, what can we offer more to our owners? And then it became more owner centric. We are bringing more value than what a typical GC would do. Because the reality is, GCs, subcontractors, they are working on defined scope of work and they are here for a fee. And I gravitated more towards, just because of my history of being more, like owner centric, client facing. How can I make this a better transition for them for their operations data? And
Since you're getting so much data and you're dealing with owners, and w- once we get past that project lifecycle management, which is when that handover happens, right? And we start to take an asset where we're going to have to deal with roughly 80% of that asset's life and what it costs and everything else, right? So if that's the case, why do you think that asset handover could be considered somewhat like the last mile to determine what an operational success is once it's handed over to that owner?
why I think like that, and I'll tell you, it didn't happen day one. I
Yeah.
was not looking into data day one. I was, again, another drawback of coming from pure academia. You get latched onto buzzwords, you get latched onto the new technology and the shiny objects. And I have been guilty, and I realize this as I'm growing older, of being somebody who's like, oh, this is great technology. I work with virtual reality. I like the notion of digital twin. How do I, that tech push, like, I have the solution. Mr. Owner, take this. This is great. And as I kept, like, getting into this and peeling the onion, it's really what the owner wants. Pure and simple is good data. Data that they can trust, data that they can put in their system, whatever system they have, day one to start operations. Because any design construction projects last 4, maybe 5 years. But the owner is living with that data for like at least 30, if not 50 or 100 years. I live in the noise of data. It's hard. I say I only do the asset data turnover, but even that is so hard.
We want in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based off of what you said. So, what should we do to make that happen in the beginning? What type of things should we initiate or put into our standards or whatever so that we can have that in beginning to make when that asset actually is handed over, we can get almost, there's always going to be some nuances, but we can almost get what we're actually looking for out of that project.
So I've worked with federal projects. I've worked with very sophisticated owners, aviation, higher ed, healthcare. The first thing is just what data you need. And some people make that an overkill and they're like, I want the whole world. They
Yeah.
really don't want the whole world. That's even more counterproductive. Just what are the, like, and talk to the 2 or 3 stakeholders. You don't have to start with everything. I would start with your operations and management team, the facilities team that's doing work orders. What are the big pieces of equipment that you're going to maintain? Talk about just those items. If you are going to be very sophisticated, you can add to that list. But remember, the more you keep adding, the more it becomes costly for people to get data on. And then the attributes. Again, I've worked with some federal projects and it's great because they have stuff very well defined. They have like maybe 100 attributes that you want to collect, but not everything will apply. So whatever ecosystem you're on, And they are very easy. You can, extract a template of what are the fields that we want data on and what type of equipment we want. If you can just do that, that will take you way further than the more sophisticated things about CDE and trying to get into the tech stack and all that. Just what you want to maintain and what data points you want for that.
That was kind of a new build answer. So,
Yes.
what if you have a facility or campus that's an older campus and we have a renovation or modification to a building? The new part of that building, with what you said, that's fine. But some
Yes.
people forget about that
The
old part
existing.
of that building. And are we going to forget about the assets over there or everything that's included in that? And we're only going to do the new portion? And that's some of the stuff, Sonali, that as I talk to people, I'm like, you guys are putting up all these pretty pictures and you're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, there's no way you're going to tell me that you actually bit the bull by the horns and got that old stuff, because you know what? That's hard.
The old stuff is hard.
It's hard.
The old stuff is hard. You can get the 3D from a laser scan, fine.
Yeah.
But how are you going to talk about what model manufacture unless you already have it somewhere? Where are the O&M documents? What is the facility condition assessment? How many more years do you have on this AHU or your boiler? That's a whole different ballgame.
And that's some of the things that I knew today once we started talking. I'm like, there are people, I want them to know there are two different roads traveled.
Completely different animal. Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say like the one for one projects, right? So when they're like the one for one asset, old facility, let's go a terminal, right? I feel like sometimes the data falls through the cracks there because it's like it's the same thing, but it's like, yeah, then you have different warranty dates, you have different commissioning dates. So I feel oftentimes even the simplest things like a one for one, they fall through the cracks so easily.
Absolutely.
Earlier, you were talking about some of these multi-year projects. Some of these places, if you've already installed a unit and we're still building, that one's already going.
Yes.
That one's going. So you have to understand those things. And
Yeah.
all of this we're talking about, what Kendra just said, these one for ones, where I've added all these new assets over here, but I still have these others.
Yes.
And some people don't understand the data analytics, the insights of if I get a BIM model of that whole thing and I start getting insights from my IoTs of my systems there, if I haven't taken time to let those age themselves so that I can get some data analytics and derive something to make decisions, then guess what? I'm just looking at graph lines, right?
Yeah,
There
it's
has
just
to be something
pictures.
that makes that a decision.
That's 100%. And that's why, like, coming from a GC point of view, most of the times we're doing the capital, like new projects. But even getting the new projects the right static data to enter, I'm not even talking about IoT sensors and all that. And even with IoT sensors, you want to track those as well because they can break down too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even figuring out how many sensors, where are your sensors? It's getting just the data right and getting rid of all the noise. The problem right now is not that we have data, we have too much data. So kind of streamlining it and just getting exactly what you will need in the future, just determining that itself is really hard because we are collecting this data from designers, from subcontractors, and a lot of it is messy. Nobody's doing it perfectly. They're not incentivized to do it.
Yep. And I know Kendra's over here, Miss Civil Projects over here, Civil Bill Manager, who's like, I'm glad I ain't dealing with all this facility mess, but
Hey. That I think even when you get into like the differences between civil data and facility data, just the sheer amount is insane. Because I look at a runway, each asset, each light is an asset, and that could be hundreds, thousands of lights. And each one is getting replaced. Each one is getting taken out and replaced. And so the data there seems like a lot. And then you go into these facilities and you have triturators, you have all these little things, and each one
Valves.
has to be maintained. And it's not my cup of tea.
Yes.
It's
I
not.
will tell you, we try to cull it to the most important pieces of equipment and assets, and any building, commercial, higher ed, healthcare. My average number is 30,000 assets.
Yeah.
And at least, and I'm not talking like your big campus, multiple buildings. I'm just talking one building, and a lot out of that, 8 to 10,000 will just be lighting fixtures, and that's huge with higher ed. Higher ed, it's lighting fixtures, aviation. Believe it or not, the bane of my existence. You will laugh at this. Is faucets, flush valves,
Oh God.
because like
Yes.
nobody's modeling those, but you
Yeah.
have to get data on those, and those have to get maintained. Temperature sensors, because you are trying to get your passengers through. That's get their comfort. Public restrooms are a big deal with airports.
Huge. When you think about Handover today and what's the core problem you see across most projects, you said something earlier that kind of hit me in the heart when you said, even though it's a new project, we still need to do some fact finding. You also said, Robert, we need to visit with the CMMS people. I know here, I talk to somebody on our CMMS team at least once a week, or if not bi-weekly, but we're always having a conversation because every project that we have, I want to make sure that I'm getting what they need to try, what they need. And Sonali, I've been doing this since 2016, and I'm still having to talk to my CMMS team.
Yes.
So if that's the case, how does that fit into what your mindset is today of most projects, asset handover? That have you seen a lot of people doing that much interaction with the CMMS, with the people who's maintaining it?
Not really. So unfortunately, they are the most important people because they are inheriting all this data. They are going to operate and maintain on this data. And if we don't talk to them, that's a missed thing. I have seen the most sophisticated, like federal requirements, NAFAC requirements, where everything is spelled out, and it'll be at the national level, but the station that you're working on, the facility guys, they probably don't need all that data. So there's inundation of too much data for them. And what we have started to do in our practice is we have to talk to them. We have to understand, what system they're going to use. What are the real things that they are going to be looking at? What attributes really make sense for them? Because we'll have a list of 50 to collect, but they probably only worry about 4 or 5, and those may not be in the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do meet with them a lot. And it's not only them. Maybe we can funnel it to the commissioning people, because changing the format is easy, but what you're collecting, how you're collecting, if you have that figured out, you can talk about other stakeholders. Your C level, we were talking to somebody, on the C level, and they don't care about all this data. But he was like, I just want to know what the square footage of my different buildings are on
Yeah.
my campus.
Yeah.
That's a very easy ask.
Failures of handover, and you just described what's called, some call it a data dump, just dump everything and go. But there has to be a rhyme or reason. I know what we do is, and Kendra's spearheading this, where as we do a project closeout, you know what? I want the project data associated with that asset. I want the O&M, the
Yes.
commissioner report. There's things that we list that we want out of that instead of just a data dump. And so I know that's what we've started here. We kind of took that approach because, as you remember in COVID, a lot of people, I know here, a lot of institutional knowledge left.
Yes.
And as you can see now, those that have stayed, the institutional knowledge is getting older. Those institutional knowledge, and this is no knock against them, or have the I want to retire mindset, so I don't want to do anything extra.
100% institutional law, because there's all these people who've stayed with the facility for more than 20 years. They know exactly they don't even probably open any software. They just know where anything is. They know what things tend to break. And when they leave, they either have like a stack or, a shoebox with all their CDs or like binders, and they have it all in their head. They're not able to tell, which is only one reason where I feel the 3D side of things and where everything is located becomes very important, because the new generation wants to gamify stuff, wants to know where everything is. So that makes sense. But how do you extract that institutional knowledge from people who are already there? How do you get them to work with the new generation?
Well, what do you think about missing or incomplete asset attributes? What kind of stuff causes that? Or not naming the space correctly? Room numbers are on one floor as a totally different nomenclature than the next floor.
But you also get the people who are like within that maintenance group, within that department, that one person will care about the rooms, one person cares about the sinks, one person cares about it's so siloed even in those departments that when you are trying to clear up what data you need, that's why you have to have those conversations where you're sitting down with each group, figuring out what does everyone need. Because I feel like it's just this industry's so incredibly siloed. Even with this initiative that I'm doing, it's so hard to even find someone who I need to talk to who do I need to talk to for this? I need this data, but it's nowhere to be found. So I feel like it's something that's changing and needs to change by getting these people in a room, but it's also it's a task.
What about the contractor optimizing for closeout but not operation?
They don't. They have no incentive to do that. I'm telling you, as a GC, we have no incentive to do that unless the owner asks for it. And when the owner asks for it, and I'm talking general industry, right? Like you guys are at the tip of the spear. So whatever problems you have are true problems, but you're the most advanced. We are collecting data with designers, with subcontractors, with GCs that are nowhere close to that level of sophistication. And I will tell you, it is so messy. And if you want to get a sense of how messy it is, let's take the example of doors, because that across all business building types, aviation, healthcare, higher ed, is the hardest thing to do, is doors. Because even the spaces that they're in, like higher ed is notorious. Like you'll have space names or location names in a floor plan that are something, but by the time they get turned over and they start like running classrooms, that classroom is named something else. So now you have to and then a door with access control has electrical subcontractors on it, have security on it, have low voltage, have at least 3 or 4 different subcontractors, the hardware, the key people for lockout. There is so much data for one door. Now, there's not just one door. There's at least thousands of doors, if not 10,000 of doors.
If you don't visit with CMMS like you talked about or have any in-depth conversations with the owner, what type of misconceptions you think contractors can have or try to push on an owner?
Yeah. So the misconception on the owner side is really, I want everything. The misconception on the contractor side, like contractors' point of view or thinking is, if it's in the scope, I will do it. If it's not in the scope, I will not touch it. So the owners have to they can't ask for everything, because then it's a lot of cost and you're probably not getting a good ROI and you're getting a data dump without you even realizing it. So unfortunately, the onus is on the owner to be very specific on what they want and why they want. The other misconception, huge misconception that the GCs have is, this is closeout. This is handover. So we will start this 4 months before closeout. And it's too late. It's too hard for them to get that data, because by that time, a lot of the subcontractors that have that information are already gone. And they're also not telling the subcontractors that I want my warranties in a timely fashion and O&M. So the subcontractor is like, do you want me to install these things that I'm behind on? Do you want me to do all this admin paperwork? So it is so important for owners to tell what they want and also put milestones. Like, I want 20%. 50% and have cost milestones. That gets the GC's attention
I challenge the BIM task force here that I met. I challenge them. Y'all need to narrow this down to exactly what we need because
100%.
I can't keep saying we're paying for this.
I have delivered Kobe, and I don't know this for sure, but I don't think some people have even used it to its full potential.
No way possible. And I know somebody's gonna talk about digital twin. You not using that for that either. Stop it. Before I get on a soapbox, Kendra gets on me sometime when I get talking about assets, digital twins. But hey, what type of misalignments between the construction teams and operations teams have you saw that makes for a bad final package?
Even with the most defined requirements, and the only way to bypass that is to have meetings with them and understand what do they truly need, because they would have written something and the GC is thinking, okay, this is O&Ms, this is a PDF. I'm going to dump the PDF, and that's a 5,000 page PDF, and this is your O&Ms. And the owner's like, I wanted it connected to every piece of, asset. And then it's like the format can be very misaligned. A lot of owners have started doing like a light Kobe, or this is our Kobe. But really, what if they can just take out the export of whatever CMMS system they're using and use that as a template? That's
Yes.
the best way to go. There's no second guessing anything. The GCs, a lot of times, if they've not started, at least during procurement, like maybe after design and when the subcontractors are buying the piece of equipment, they're getting the cut sheets and the product data. If they don't start then and they say, oh, I'll do it the last 4 months, you're not going to get clean data.
Now you have something that's a fully operational asset information management system that has something that's of a framework with it to make it meaningful and not something I'm just sticking on a shelf or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but at some point in time, you're gonna have to have some sort of framework. You're gonna have to have some sort of principles that makes the data flow the way you want it to flow.
100%.
Um, and when you get that, you can start to see that as you do start to dive into AI of that, it's going to give you better answers of what you're wanting and not just spitting things out and you're continuously trying to make it learn versus why not feed it good data? And instead of this mindset that I'm going to get rid of people, maybe let's think I am getting my data to optimize our system, and that's what the AI is going to help us do is optimize.
So are
And
you saying that the idea of a digital twin can optimize the data that comes from handover, that comes from construction, that comes from design? So like, is that the idea of a digital twin? Can
So
that optimize the data that it's being fed?
So a lot of people got a misconception of digital twin. Digital twins is a big conception vessel. Okay. And what I mean by a big conception vessel is it's only as good as what you feed it per your integrations. So you heard us earlier talking about assets and all these parameters. You're going to integrate into the CMMS. So guess what you're going to get? Regardless of what I have here, you're going to get what's in that CMMS. But if my 3D environment isn't aligned with what that CMMS, we failed. So the digital twin you have to look at as a big consumption vessel that brings all of these outliers into one that allows somebody who's not good at Revit, Civil 3D, who's not a CMMS person, who's not all of this, the ability to look at data in a simplistic way to make a decision.
to be able to absorb that data. But, and that's why, like, you know me, Robert, I'm really excited with AI. I'm really excited with all the shiny digital twin. But the foundation, Kendra, like if the data is not right, it's like back in the days, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right data, you can have the most sophisticated AI. You can have a really fancy digital twin that you've spent millions of dollars on. If the foundation is not right, like it'll show you stuff, but it won't be accurate. Even AI will hallucinate if you don't have the. And a part of me was like, maybe we can use AI to, help organize. And things are getting easier. but the input data, the raw data, I'm going to feed it manually in whatever system I'm using to collect data, even if it's a spreadsheet. Are you naming them right? Are you naming them consistently? What is the asset naming convention? Is it going to be called the same thing in your BAS? Is it going to, so all those things, like there's a lot of planning just to curate and organize that data. But once you do it, then the handover becomes really seamless. And then, we don't have the luxury of telling the owner, use this ecosystem, use this tech stack. The reality is they already have established existing buildings, existing systems. We work with whatever ecosystem you have, but please have the right data. That's all we're trying to strive for.
You brought up AI. You brought up AI. I brought up AI. How do you see it reshaping asset data quality and validation? Is that possible right now?
It is. It's made data collection a bit easier. It's helped map stuff. So it is helping, but you really need to know what you're doing, because if you don't and AI gives you a bad result, you will not know.
Right.
So you have to, it is very powerful. It's made our lives easier for sure. But if we hadn't done it the old school way of manually mapping and figuring out the data schema and all that, and we had just gone in it cold, it would have given us a great result. We wouldn't have known if it's right or wrong. Now I can tell.
So why are people saying, "Oh man, it's gonna help me. This is gonna eventually get rid of people"? I get that, but how do we normalize that data? How do we QC that data to make sure with people thinking like that? You can't think that way right now.
No, not right now.
There's too much.
Not when you're having to QC the AI. Yeah, you can't you
Yeah.
can't quite say, well, AI is going to QC my data when we're the ones who have to quality check the AI, making sure that those agents are still doing the tasks we ask them to. The data changes, the requirements change. We have to conform those agents to read the new data. So that's a hard ask in itself, to ask the AI, hey, maintain this data when we're constantly the ones changing it.
It's the shiny toy, AI, digital twin. They're tools. They are tools. They're here to support you. They're not the content is still king. Like the content has to be right.
Well, I can tell you, I just got back July from a academic AI symposium. And it's funny in academia where AI is and where we are in the AEC industry. So there's still a lot of nuances that people don't understand. I can put a spec book in there and my AI can read that. When you start throwing dimensions or different type of things that are attached to data, it still suffers somewhat.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the normalization, by you're having to work with that a little bit more to kind of work that out of how it's perceiving that data that it's reading, which is why I'm still on the fence of saying, I'm not saying like futuristic, you won't be able to get rid of people or minimize it, but we still have a lot of work before we start those conversations. So, what is the one thing you would advise an owner to do? If it's one or two things you would ask them to do to improve their asset handle, what would you ask? One or two.
As cliched as it sounds, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind, but make it really specific. What tool, and we are technology agnostic. Whatever you're using, you don't have to change the world. What is it that you want for the next 30 years in your building as data? And make sure you get that, and make sure you get that clean. And put that in your, because it's a lot of fragmentation in construction. There's people like you who are doing so much advanced stuff, but there's so many others who are barely crawling right now, and you're sprinting. And you may think you're not as fast as you would want it to be, but you're sprinting and people are crawling. So it's very, very important that you know what you want and then put it in the contract. Technology is there. Technology is not the problem. There is too much technology out there. There's too many startups out there. There's too many consultants out there. There's too many. Everybody has their vested interest. So you need to know what you want, and you have to, if you have to spend money on, like, should I put it in technology? I would say put it in your contracting mechanism to make sure you're getting what you want.
It's funny you say that. I talked to Kendra about something she's working on. Her and one of our landside facility teams. I said, how does that fit into the contract? How does it fit into the Division One specs? How does it fit into our standards? How does it fit into our total workflow before we go saying this? And they're looking at that right now. Then you'll see they'll look at those things. Then they'll bring it to me, and then we'll have a conversation. And it's funny, my team laughs at me because sometimes I'll go deal with something civil. I'll go deal with something on the landside facility. I'll go deal with something on the digital oversight team, the asset scanning team. Then here I am at something else. They're like, "How do you know all this?" I come,
Also, you climb ladders in the field, and I
yeah,
send pictures, and
I,
I'm like, he's still out here, y'all.
yeah, I see
Love
I'm up
that.
on the ladder, so I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I'm a grinder.
Yeah.
hmm
I
I
I
know that
I,
about
I
you.
have
We,
some, so
yeah.
you know what, I'm gonna grind. But Sonali, look, as you know, love talking to you all the time. We've always had some very meaningful conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Anything you want to say
Yeah.
to end the show with?
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Like, this is a fan moment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Digital Exchange.
We're changing the show to meet the moment, to
Yep.
go deeper, to be more honest, and to give you insight that can actually be used. Whether you're leading a capital program, managing a project, or trying to get your team to adopt just one more digital workflow,
We are now bringing two voices together for honest conversations about the AECO industry. Next time, join us and our special guests. Until then, keep building smarter.
So
We have been raving about this all weekend because, my husband went to Penn State, huge football fan. We moved to Texas, and he's like, Texas is, if you thought Penn State was crazy about football, Texas is high school football.
yeah,
And all these years, I didn't know that this guy, number 12,
yeah,
like, I have been stalking you all weekend, found the old photos. I
yeah.
had to ask my husband, what is a flanker? I don't know what a flanker is.
funny story. I got my mom's name tattooed on me, and I asked him,
Okay.
I said, Dad, can I get yours? He said, no, don't do that. I said, okay, well, how can I get away with this? How can I do something? I love my parents. I love my family so much. I'm an artsy person. I want it somewhere on my body. He said, don't you dare put my name on you. So what did I do? I went and got number 12.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
What? Yeah.
That explains so much. And ever since I watched that podcast, because I was listening or heard
Yeah.
that podcast, I was like, I don't want to talk about digital twins. I
Yeah.
just want to know about this,
Yeah.
because that truly shows what made you. You talk about being a grinder. You talk about, like, even your vocabulary, like, how do I get rid of the blockers? Like, there is. You've been more like, there's so much metal in you, like there's so much that you brought from there.